today we're going to be talking about rewilding, and we're going to be looking at a success story about rewilding. And we've got the lovely Claudia here from Comuna with us from Brazil, and she's here to talk through that with us. So welcome, Claudia.
Thanks to you, Rebecca. Yeah, I'm very pleased to be here talking to you guys, because rewilding is something we are doing for many years. Actually, everything started like 40 years ago, and only now we learned about this concept. We always did it without knowing what we were doing. At the beginning, we just believed we were doing some things related to conservation, to environmental reserve, things like this. And then we end up getting to know about this concept of rewilding, and we learned that, and actually we realized this is the concept that fits well to what we are doing and what we believe to do. So it's a pleasure to talk to you guys about it.
Brilliant, thank you. And Claudia, how long have you been at Comuna Ibiti? How long have you been working there for?
I'm at Comuna for around 9 years. Since the beginning, when we opened the hotel, we started to buy the lands around the national park around 40 years ago. And at the beginning, it was just about conservation. Then we realized around 10 years ago that we had to do something for the community as well. We didn't want to buy lands and send people to the cities. We don't want to send people to slums. We don't want to rescue people from the rural areas. Actually, it's the opposite. We want to keep these people there, but we just want to give them opportunity to do something different, to do something that would be healthier for them. They would have some income, they would be happy, but also they could help us to protect the environment. So that's why we opened the hotel, because we believed the hotel, a sustainable tourism, a sustainable hotel can be a chance for the future, can be a chance for this planet to do things in a way that is good for everybody, for the animals, for the planet, for the trees, for people, for families. So the tourism is able to rescue these traditions and also to bring income, to incentivize people to do things as they used to do in the past, but in a nice way, without putting fire on the forest, doing things like this. So I start around 9-10 years ago with the hotel when we opened it. And since then, the project was developing. And few years ago, we realized that actually what we need to do and what we were doing without realize it was actually about rewilding, not just a conservation anymore.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Claudia, for that context. So just for everybody's benefit, what is rewilding and what does it mean at a basic level?
Yeah, when we talk about rewilding, we consider that we used to talk a lot about conservation. Then we realized that the planet is somehow in such a difficult situation that only conservation of what is already, what is still alive is not enough. We need to go further. We need to help it. And we know when we talk about rewilding, is actually the opposite, is when the humans, they let the nature grow. When the humans, they stop doing things. So the nature just comes up by themselves. But one of the first stages of the rewilding process is bringing back species that already left these areas. And these species, even we work with conservation, even if we plant some trees, some species like big fauna, they are not going to come back by their own. We need to do something proactive to bring them back. And we know, as I told in the beginning, as the planet is in such a hard situation, only conservation of what is still alive is not enough for us to survive in this planet in the long term, in a healthy way for everybody. So rewilding is about letting the nature grow by their own. But one of the first stages of the rewilding, we believe, is that bringing back some species to help these species to make the forest really alive. Because, for example, we are working right now in the tapir, which is the biggest mammal, let's say wild mammal in the Americas. The tapir, as it is very big, they eat some things, they eat some seeds that only these species are able to spread around. So it means that the tapir is not living in our area for the last 50, 60 years, for example. They left long time ago. Even though we are doing a reforestation right now, we work a lot with natural regeneration. We have a park. Around the park, we have our private reserve. And yeah, we have 4 times the size of the park. If you put everything together, we are going to have around 8,000 hectares of Atlantic forest, which is huge for Brazil, for Atlantic forest. But even we do that much is not enough to bring the tapir by their own. And if the tapir is not here anymore, this forest here is not going to be the same forest we used to have 100 years ago. That's why we believe we need to let the nature knows what to do. But we did some wrong things in the past, so we try to somehow to fix it, bringing back these species. So after we have these species back, then we can consider, we can just let the nature to grow by themselves. I think that's the main idea. That's the main thing we get from the rewilding concept.
Great. That was a really great explanation, and so interesting to hear a particular species is the only one that can actually spread that particular seed, and how important that is. It's so fragile, and I think understanding that rewilding is not just about preserving already there, but looking at what's left and what needs to come back. That's quite interesting. So question 2, how did you approach the rewilding project? What was the first step you took?
The thing we do here is very organic. We always do things without, it's like we did in an opposite way. We didn't decide to do rewild. We were just doing. Then we learned about this concept, you know? That was in the opposite way. Because when we start to buy the lands and increase the preservation area around the park, from the last decades, we were doing actually rewilding, because we didn't do any kind of intervention. We just let the nature works by itself. And then we realized what we were doing with natural regeneration was rewilding. And now, once we learned about rewild concept, we realized, oh, we were doing this like long time ago, and we didn't realize. But we realized that we kind of forgot one of the stages of the rewild, which is the one I told you before, bringing back some species that left this area a long time ago. So these species, once they come back, they could give us a richer forest and things like this. So we decided to do things as the rewilding protocol, let's say, only something like few years ago, 2-3 years ago, because we had this very emblematic species, which is the muriqui, which is the woolly spider monkey. Is the biggest monkey in the whole Americas. And this monkey is just amazing. They have lots of things very special. They are very close to humans in terms of behavior. Even though the chimps, they are closer in terms of DNA, the muriqui has a very special behavior. Because they have no alpha system, So the females, they tend to cross with every male in the tribe. And it means that when she's like the teenager, when she gets the age of reproduction, she tends to try to migrate to find other tribes. In terms of, she's trying to avoid to have blood, how can I say that, genetic problems.
Mm-hmm.
She tries to avoid genetic problems. Mm-hmm. So she tends to migrate to other tribes.
Right.
Once she tries to migrate, we have no forest enough. She tends to be lost in the middle of nowhere. So probably she's going to find a predator, a hunter, or she's going to die without food, things like this. If she is lucky enough, she's going to find another piece of forest, but definitely she's not gonna find other animals like her over there, because in the whole country we have only 12 groups of muriquis, and all these 12 groups, only 4 of them are able to survive, because the others, they are too small to survive in the long term. So we did have one of these groups in our land, in our reserve. So we decided that we had to do something for this species. Mm-hmm. So we brought a lost female, she was living for 8 years in a forest, completely isolated, because she tried to migrate, as she didn't find any corridor or any other group. She was just isolated, living there for many years by her own. So we brought this female, and we realized that we had to do it more, because at the beginning of the research, we used to have around 15 monkeys. And then next time we came back was just 12, 9. Then we had the yellow fever. At the end, we had only 4. After yellow fever and many things going on, the last monkeys we found alive in our forest were only 2. These 2 monkeys, they were all male. It means they were extinct. So we had to bring these females, but we realized just as they are very, very under risk of extinction, we couldn't leave them alive in the forest in a freedom, because it was too risky to leave them there. We couldn't lose one of them. So we built a huge, we call like a cage, but we took around 2 hectares. It's like 2 football camps field. So we took 2 hectares and we closed the forest. We did big, huge fences around the forest. So now the monkeys, they live inside the forest, but in a controlled forest. So now we have biologists and vets looking for them 7 days per week. And we brought 2 females. Now we had 2 males and 2 females, and they already crossed last summer. So we are really looking forward to have babies soon. But this monkey is very difficult, because the mothers, they stay with the kids for 4 years, and it's very difficult to grow this population. So we believe that the project we are doing now, it's something no one ever did in the past in Brazil or even in other countries. And what we are doing now is something very new. So lots of research are taking place in this area, and lots of learning as well. Lots of knowledge came from this experience. So everything is very new for everybody. But after we had this successful experience, actually not successful yet, because for rewilding, we only have success when we have the grandchildren. And now we are just trying to get the children. But for now, we consider we are having success. And that's why we decided to do it for other species as well. So right now we are working with the tapir and few kinds of birds. And also we do some projects with wolf, which is the very typical animal from this area here. So yeah, so many things going on.
It is just, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps, Claudia, just listening to you, because it's just amazing the kind of work you're doing there. Going on to question 3, what were the biggest challenges? I appreciate you may have had a lot of challenges, but what were the biggest challenge you encountered, and how did you overcome that?
We do have lots of challenges. Of course, even to rescue a monkey in the forest, it's so hard. We ever done only 8 tentatives in the whole country. You didn't have professionals who knows how to do it proper. Actually, they know, but they didn't have experience on it. So since the beginning was very hard. The first female took us many, many months to be able to rescue her, as they are in a very high trees, could be dangerous for her if we don't do things very well. So we had lots of challenges. But all these challenges, I can consider them operational challenge. And everything you do in life, you have this kind of challenge. But for us, what was the hardest time was about license, because the government didn't understand our intentions. We still have these problems with education. Let me tell you a very famous example we had in Brazil. We had a blue macaw. It was a small, I don't remember the scientific name of her. We don't work with her. It's a different macaw we have here, but whatever. This blue macaw, it's like this size. This macaw was very famous. We even did a move about her in the country because the macaw was extinct. There was no macaws anymore in the nature. And there were so many people working on them, doing lots of researching, trying to keep them alive. And then suddenly the last one in nature disappeared. So it was a very sad story. But what happens? Of course, it's a terrible story, but at the same time, what we are trying to do, of course, is not as this story I'm going to tell you, but just an example. Because the biologists especially and the government, they understand we have to let the nature do things by their own, and we really believe on that. But as I told you at the beginning, we reach a certain point in the planet that only live in nature is not enough anymore. If we do it, we are going to lose more and more species. So what happens to this macaw is, in the black market, a famous sheikh from the Arab countries. This sheikh used to love collecting animals from all around the world. So through the black market, this sheikh bought some macaws to I don't know the country well, but this sheikh used to have this macaw over there, and he used to reproduce this macaw. And we are grateful now because this guy did it in the past. Now he sent us back some macaws, and now we are able to find the macaws again. So that's the point. If we don't do some things for these monkeys we are doing now, which is completely endangered, we have less than 1,000 of them in the nature. And when we had the yellow fever, around 30% of them died. It means that if we don't do something very proactive now, these monkeys, they will disappear in few years. And we don't want this to happen. But until we educate people, we prove, we talk, and we convince government and some biologists and some scientists that we need to do some things for those very specific species, that was our main challenge. Because, for example, our monkeys, we try to do something for them, 6 years ago, we decided to do something more proactive. And only 2 years ago, we were able to get the license. And this was the fastest license we were able to get. It took around 4 years, and 2 monkeys died. I mean, half of the group died in this time before we get the license. So I think that's the biggest challenge. It's about education. It's about let people concerned about our intentions and what is needed to do with these very endangered species.
Thank you, Claudia. That was incredible and really, really insightful. What can you just tell me what the license was for?
To be able to rescue them, to take them from nature and put them in a controlled area. But also for the tapir as well, for example, which is a new license we are working now. It's a license to be able to bring a tapir from an area which they still exist and bring some animals and relieve them in our area. So it's very difficult because they sometimes we have to prove that this animal used to live here before. But that's something in the common sense. Everybody knows that. But it's like a job of a policeman, you know? We have to prove with papers and things like this that this animal used to live here. Of course, this is very important. Of course, we cannot bring a species which is not from here. But sometimes until we are able to collect all the material to prove that, it takes so long, so we lose time.
It's still quite early days, but what results have you seen, or is it too early to tell?
I can't tell you about any scientific results because actually we are doing lots of papers, scientific papers, and many findings came from this research we are doing with the monkeys. So that's something that completely changed the fate of these monkeys. But in terms of numbers, in terms of number of animals that came back, things like this, we don't have it yet. What we know is we have around 6,000 hectares, and around 9% of them, they are under natural regeneration. And I'm sure the numbers are amazing, but we just don't have them yet. Mm-hmm. And what we can see is many animals that the old people, they used to see in the past, they disappear. Now people are seeing them again. So that's the most beautiful thing for us, because naturally we know these animals, they are coming back. And we know that when some animals, they come back, it means that the water is coming back, the forest is much more richer. So all the service that the environment can provide to us, humans and animals, are much beautiful, much bigger now, because we see the nature is coming back.
Yeah, it's such a fragile ecosystem, isn't it? And there's such balance there. But it, like you said, you don't have specific results. The point is it's an ongoing and evolving process. It's not a destination you're trying to get to.
Yeah, that's the point. As I told you at the beginning, everything we do is very organic. We are not really interested in numbers, in telling people, come on, now we have 1,000 of birds and things like this. We just want to let nature grow and preserve it. And only now, under this stage of bringing back these species, we are trying to do something more proactive. But we know the nature knows better than us. So what is important is let the nature grow. And that's the main result. We can see the birds are singing more now. We can see more colorful birds. We can see the wolf coming closer to us again. We can see the puma coming back again. So that's the main results for us. Yeah. And as you said, this ecosystem is very fragile because we are in the Atlantic forest. Atlantic forest in Brazil used to cover the whole country, the coast of the country. And now we have only less than 8% of the original Atlantic forest, less than 8. And this Atlantic forest is the forest that gives the environmental service to 70% of the Brazilian population. So almost every Brazilian, they depends of this forest we are talking about. So because we have so many cities and industries and people living around this forest is under a huge pressure. So all the water that the nature gives to us Brazilians mainly comes from this forest. Around we have in Brazil around 600 species in danger, and from the 600, around 400 comes from the Atlantic forest. So we were considered a worldwide hotspot, and it was also elected the 8th most in danger and most important ecosystem in the world. So there are so many things going on in this ecosystem. That's why I told you at the beginning, having 6,000, 8,000 hectares protected, talking about Atlantic forest, it's huge. If you were talking about Amazon, 8,000 hectares wouldn't be that much. But because Atlantic forest is under this huge pressure, 8,000 hectares, it's huge.
Yeah.
And also, we are in a transition zone with we call Brazilian savanna, which is we call cerrado. It's another kind of biome, and we are in this transition area. So this makes this place very, very special as well. So talking about flora, we have lots of endemic species and very special kinds of plants and trees, things like this. And so that's why we also have to preserve them. But even for them, we have to bring the animals to spread their seeds and doing things like this.
Great. It's just incredible, you know, saying that less than 8% left of the Atlantic forest, but 70% of the population rely on it is just mind-blowing, and just makes you realise why are not more people aware of the importance of the protection of this. So to the next question there. Claudia, what is the advice you would give to someone else, maybe another hotelier or eco-property owner that's thinking about rewilding or thinking about what else they could be doing for their own local area for conservation? What advice would you share with them on this video?
Letting nature do things by its own. Because if you have an area which you can allow this area to just grow by themselves, it's just amazing. The nature will do the job for you. So it's just a matter of having an area and let this area to be protected. And the only thing you have to do nowadays is to be able to protect this area. We have to be able to protect it in terms of environmental education. You have to avoid hunters. You have to avoid fire. We have to do these things, but the rest, the nature can do it for you. But also, if you want to go a little bit further, you can look for some initiatives that you have in your own country, your own area. For example, for us in Brazil, actually, when we start to do something more proactive with animals, we started doing a partnership with the government. So we got a license and we did this partnership with them. So every animal they get, they rescue from the black market, they use our area to relieve these animals. So at the beginning, we built some cages for them because some of these animals, they came with some illness, some problems. Some of them, they were just found on the roads, hit by a car, things like this. So we did this partnership with the government, so we could look after these animals. Once they are able to go back to the nature, we used to relieve them in our area. I think that's a first stage for everybody who wants to protect nature. And then if they want to go a bit further and work with some of these stages related to rewilding as well.
Mm.
I think that's a beginning.
No, that's really
Yeah.
useful. And just coming up to the last question, Claudia, how important is the rewilding project that you're doing and continuing doing to the business, the tourist side of the business, and how much attention does it attract? Because ultimately you are running a business.
Actually, this is one of the challenging points. We really want to show people the nature, to educate them, so they will learn how to love this. We always say that you only look after what you love, and you only love what you know. So we are trying to give people this access to this kind of project, to educate them, so them they can get inspired and they can change the world when they go back to their homes, and they can do their own things to help protect the planet.
Mm.
So the tourism helps in these terms. But at the same time, we have to be very careful, because these projects, they are very fragile. So some species or some projects, they cannot have the contact with humans, because once they will get relieved, they have to be kind of scared by us. Otherwise, they will become a friends of a future hunter, things like this. So it's a very thin line. So we work very close to the biologists, to the vet, and other scientists to find the right balance, because we really want to offer people the opportunity to learn about this, but also have to look after the animals and protect them. Uh, so nowadays, what we do is the monkeys, we sometimes we open to visitation, but in a very, very careful way. Only few people, only days that the monkeys are very relaxed and very and taking care of this kind of details. I think that's the point, and we are going to keep learning once things happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you find a lot of people come to you because they find out that you are this hotspot which is protecting this endangered wildlife? Is it very much a hook that brings people to come and stay with you?
Be honest, we wish it could be more, but actually nowadays people they come because they find the whole thing very interesting, but sometimes they don't even get know about it. They don't even get know about the scenes behind. So we wish we could spread more these words and tell people about this project, because also we need this kind of it's a kind of support.
Mm.
Once we have tourists coming, that's they come, we have to protect these animals.
Mm.
So would be good if you would have more people coming for this project, but we believe we are still at the beginning of the stage of educating people.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for your time, Claudia, and going through that with us. It really was so insightful, and without obviously being able to come there and learn, it is a great insight to how a rewilding project rolls out and what it involves. So, thank you so much for that, Claudia, and we hope to hear from you very soon again.
Thank you. I hope I see you soon here.